So I hadn't been taking care of myself, and so last September I had a TIA, like a mini stroke, at work. Affected my speech. It did resolve, but when I went to the hospital, where I was borderline hypertensive, I was hypertensive. Where I was borderline, liver issues, my liver enzymes were high, my cholesterol was high. I just hadn't been taking care of myself. So at that point, I got on meds. I was out of work for 5 months, 6 months. And I kind of focused on, getting back in shape, working out. I got on a GLP-1 for type 2 diabetes because my sugar was high, which it had always been borderline. So I sort of saw that coming with the weight too. I was 280. I've lost 30 pounds in probably 7 months. The weight loss is slowing kind of way down. So now I'm working on all the other stuff, making sure I'm doing all the right stuff, like, the fiber, the protein, the eating. It's frustrating because I lost so much at the beginning and then it just slowed right down to a crawl now. But so now I'm back to work. I'm packing food for work. I'm packing food. I'm trying to prepare for home. I'm at a pretty high dose of the Ozempic, and I'm still frustrated that I'm not losing any weight. But I think they say people with type 2 diabetes are a little slower to lose the weight. And I've just been listening to a lot of people who have these lives, and they have a lot to offer. Yourself, Rebecca, Mike with a Mission, a lot of people like that. And I picked up a lot of good information, even down to like food and fiber and things like that.
Yeah, I love that. It's true. Like, weight is one of the things that we all kind of tend to focus on. But how do you feel in general when it comes to, you said you had that mini stroke and you're dealing with the A1C and all of that. So how do you feel like mentally? Like how do you feel too with just inflammation and how your body moves? Like express those kind of positive things besides just the weight.
I'm feeling better. I'm feeling a lot better. Last summer, I knew that something was going on. I was sweating like profusely all the time. I do a lot of outside stuff like paddleboarding and surfing and stuff, and I just was getting my butt whipped out in the water. And I just, it wasn't just the weight. There was something going on. So, like, I've made a real effort to, add movement and things like that. And I've mentioned to you before, I watch my granddaughter a couple days a week. And at the beginning, it was brutal. And
Yeah.
now, like yesterday, we did 10,000 steps. We played all day. I mean, I was tired at the end of the day. I'm 58 years old, but it was a lot easier 30 years ago when I had my kids. Um, but I'm feeling better. I'm still. I don't know if it's the diabetes or the med, but I am more tired than I've ever been in the past. But I feel better. It's funny, and I shouldn't obsess about weight, but in my gym in the basement, I have a little pile of weights of how much I've lost, and I pick it up once in a while to see how much I'm not having to walk up the stairs with. I don't have to walk with. I don't have to work with. I know we should obsess with weight, but I just keep reminding myself, hey, you lost all this, and just trying to encourage myself.
Yeah, well, that's an obsession. That's not necessarily a bad thing, right? That's a good thing, and that's nothing weird. Don't worry about that. We need to remind ourselves, right? Because a lot of people will come in here and say, "I've only this, I've only that." But man, I'll tell you what. When I'm at the gym and I put that little 5 pound extra little, cylinder thing on my weights, I'm like, "Dang, that's 5 pounds. That's amazing." Right? So it's good to remind ourselves of how far we've come when it comes to that, right? And that's good. So that helps you, right? That helps you feel more grounded and feel confident that you're successful.
Yeah, and I don't have any gloom and doom about the situation. I feel like if anything, I'm making things better. I'm prolonging life. My goal is to continue to lose weight. My goal is to continue to move and to be healthy. And I mentioned before, I'm on, you know, I'm on the O, and it really took away my desire to drink, which I was drinking too much, honestly. And so I just don't want to have a drink now. It doesn't taste good. It doesn't appeal to me. I don't know what psychological thing it is, but it's been that's been a real positive thing. 'Cause those numbers went right down, which I'm happy about. I don't think I'm sure have done damage over the years, but not tremendous amount of damage.
Yeah. And I think maybe it's our age. I don't know, but it's so important for people to think about not just, the weight and the looks and all that, but just our longevity of life and how we can function in our older years, right? So you were saying that about your grandkids and just movement. And so what advice would you give someone? What encouragement would you give someone talking about just thinking about the things that really matter in life, right? I know you want to be able to keep playing with your grandchild, right? And get on the floor and do those things, right? It's so important that we can have that mobility um, and that just function of our body. So what encouragement would you give someone to maybe have them try to focus on something a little different when it comes to our weight?
Really focus on those wins. And I know it's not always weight, but it's, I'm not getting as winded. I'm not, I'm able to get up quicker. Even though my weight loss has slowed down quite a bit, my sizing in clothes is still going down because I think my body is reshaping as I work out and as I move, even though the scale's not moving. And I'm not a scale guy. Like I do it once a week usually. That way I don't get frustrated because, the ups and downs can frustrate you. And, so it's when you guys talk about the small wins, like that, even the non-scale wins, those are a huge part of it that'll keep you going, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Do you have any you like to share?
Well, for me, I was so frustrated with the weight, and yet all of a sudden I went down a pair of jean size, like, and that was like I didn't even understand that, it didn't make any sense, and just the fact that I'm moving so much and it's not beating me up, and I can feel it. I can really feel my movement is getting better. My hope is, wow, if it got better with 30 pounds, maybe it'll get even better with another 30 pounds. Like, and that gives you some hope that like things are going to get better and you're not just getting old, you can make some improvements.
Yeah, so true. Yeah. For me, my mental state has improved so much. My mental clarity, my just um, outlook on life in general, right? When it comes to helping our health in general, right? With what we're doing alongside this medication. What do you feel like? Do you feel like how you feel about life and your mental state has improved and
I
you want
think
to express that?
I think honestly to express a personal thing is the without the alcohol, I'm certainly more present. I'm more present for our family. I'm more present for coworkers. I'm more present for everybody. And I think that those relationships, all of a sudden, they start meaning even more to you because you're building those connections back. And that's only one facet. Not everyone had that component, but for me, that was a big. I think the alcohol was hurting me mentally, and I think now I seem to be savoring everything a lot more.
Isn't that the case? It's those in layman's term, right? It affects our dopamine levels, our reward response, right? So, even you're experiencing that with Ozempic, which technically doesn't have as much as, tirzepatide, but I love that that's something you're experiencing. And I think too, like when we have everything else kind of fall into place with our health and those dopamine levels are regulated, we do become clear. And then of course the alcohol is taken away and like it just everything opens up, right? And you can feel more and you can just be present, like you said. I think that's amazing.
Well, and I have such a physical job, you know, I, that I have to maintain sort of some physical health, and I think it was a godsend that I had the event that I had because I think if not, something worse would have happened. I think.
Yeah. So everybody in the chat, if you have any questions for me or for Matt specific, I don't know how Matt wants to open up necessarily. He doesn't have to, say anything he's uncomfortable with, but please ask your questions if you do, if you have any. Would you like, I'm interested into the event that you had and kind of how that played out and what you felt and just curious, if you want to share anything about it.
So I wasn't feeling well. I went to work, but I wasn't feeling very, very well. I didn't know what it was. I thought maybe my blood pressure was a little high. I could usually feel it in my face and I get red a little bit. But I thought, like I said, it was all borderline. They hadn't treated it yet. And I was at work. I wasn't feeling myself. And then we went on I'm in emergency services. And I went on a call and my speech was garbled and I knew it. And I had my aide who drives me. I told him what was happening. We passed off the call to a captain who works for me, and then I went back. I was just going to go home, because I'm stubborn. And the guys, the paramedics that work with me were like, you gotta go to the hospital. You know what I mean? Because you're not, your speech is messed up. Something's going on. Then they did my blood pressure. It was super high. My sugar was high. Everything was kind of off. So I went and I got the $1 million workup when I got there, and it was a TIA. They could see it on MRI. The symptoms resolved. I actually have the tape of me speaking on the radio, and you could really hear it. It's wild. And the neurologists were fascinated by it because by the time they get a TIA, a lot of times it's resolved, and they really don't have a good look at what it was. So they were fascinated by the tape. It's upsetting. It was upsetting to my family, but I thought it was probably an important piece to keep, even as a reminder of how tragic it could have been. And I could have probably retired from that, but I really want to retire on my pace. So, I want to retire in 4 years. We'll see if that happens, but
Yeah.
um,
Wow.
it was a pretty traumatic at the time event. Of course, then they find all kinds of crazy things when they're looking at you,
Yeah.
which a lot of them ended up being nothing. But it was a pretty rough couple of weeks, and I didn't feel well at all for a while. I had a couple episodes where my speech was a little bit garbled, and then like after about a month, after I got my blood pressure and everything equalized, I haven't had any issues.
I gotcha. And we'll answer the question here in the chat in a second. So what do they do? Just because I'm ignorant when it comes to this, what do they do to then forward your care? Like, how do they, what, besides the medication that you're on, that's obviously helping, the GLP-1, like, what do they do for you after that to help?
So there wasn't really any rehab with it because it resolved. The nature of a TIA is transient; it comes and it goes. The thought used to be that if you had one, it was like a precursor. You're going to have a major stroke, and like statistically, that may or may not be true. But they could see a lesion on the MRI. They could see where it was, in the speech center of my brain. They could see where it was. They could see where it had happened and resolved. I'm sorry. What exactly were you asking about the?
No. That was just, I was just like, what's the action of care after that? Just kind of.
After that, I had a barrage of tests, both cardiac stuff and stuff about my brain. The TIA stuff they weren't as worried about because I didn't have any recurrence of it. And actually all my cardiac stuff looked great, which is unbelievable for like a 280-pound, 58-year-old guy. Like stress test was good. Like, cause I do try to keep it, keep active, even though I got myself too heavy. But there wasn't a lot of TIA care. It was more of looking at the big picture of like, I've really been not taking care of myself, and they wanted to focus on all those things.
Yeah. Wow.
Make sure I don't have, I asked my wife to keep an eye, and if she did notice, that first month or so that I had a couple episodes where I was having trouble withdrawing words, but after that it sort of resolved and then it was gone.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So we have a question in the chat. I said chat. We have a question in the chat about what your occupation is, and you can talk about that. And I have some questions for that, and then we'll get into your workout routine that she's asking about.
So I'm a deputy fire chief in a city near Boston. So I'm in charge of it. Typically, I'm in charge of about 25 guys. If some large event comes, I could be in charge of 50. Depending, because I run half the city, which is it's a stressful job, but it's not physically stressful like it used to be. I still will go into fires, depending on the scenario, but at this stage of the game, I'm not pulling hoses. I'm not putting ladders up. I'm sort of the incident commander. So it's a less physical job, but I'm still throwing packs on. So I still need to be in shape. I still have to be able to do the functions. That's what I do. What was the second question? I'm sorry.
So she's wanting to know about your workout routine right now.
So, well, now I walk with you a couple times a week.
So I have to say, thank you for doing that. So sometimes I'll walk or I'll be at the gym, and Matt always makes a point to be doing something physically active when he's watching me. So that's cool. I appreciate you doing that. That's awesome.
And I am lucky because of the schedule that we have. I work a day. I have a couple days off. 24, and I work a 24-hour shift, and then I have a few more days off. So I have a good amount of time off, and in the past I worked as a paramedic on the side, or I did different jobs, and now I'm just doing my 224s, and I'm thinking, focusing on my health, and I'm lucky to be able to do that. So I do have some time off. So I've always had a gym in the house. I mean, nothing fancy, but especially with COVID, we got a few things extra too. And so my routine is I do a lot of walking anyways, but then if I know I'm not going to walk, organically, I'll jump on the treadmill and do probably 40 minutes or so of a pretty good pace of a walk. And then I'll do muscle groups. I do most all dumbbells, but I've broken it up in about 3 days a week for that. So I try to walk every day, but then I probably do about three weightlifting every week.
Oh, I love that.
And
I love that.
always, about 2008, I got promoted. I got an office job, and I gained weight then, and I had some family trauma that I gained weight then. And as time went on, I just gained more weight over the years. Initially I was in very good shape, so I think I have the ability to recover some of that because I had always worked out, and we have gyms at work, so we can always work. At work, I typically just do like the stair machine, just to. I have trouble focusing on working out when the bells are going off and we're doing things like that. So, but I'll get on the stairmaster for some time if I know I'm not going to get much exercise that day.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's interesting. We've all had trauma and drama in our life that we've gained and lost during periods of stuff that happens in our life. And to me, it helps us understand that, sometimes comfort when it comes to food, but also stress and lack of sleep and all these things that happen with us when we have some sort of issue all plays a role in our overall health and wellness, right? And that's why I also talk about making sure that we can check in with ourselves when we have those situations and reevaluate how we're doing in our health foundation when it comes to our success, because it all plays a role. It ties in together. And so I know with the things that you were talking about, how you've gained over the years with stress, I mean, we have to give ourselves some grace when it comes to that, because it's not our fault. It's just our imperfect body and our things that we deal with. But that's why I think it's so important to talk about how amazing this medication is when it comes to that kind of stuff as well, how it can help us in general when it comes to our overall health and wellness to keep ourselves regulated and healthy.
And it's good that's why I really like all your lives, yours as well as some of the others, because it just constantly reminds you of the things you need to keep doing, and not to forget that component, that you're not forgetting the fiber, or you're not forgetting the protein, or you're not forgetting the water, like all those things. Unfortunately, we just have to keep reminding ourselves of them, and then trying to sharpen them up a little bit sometimes.
Well, I mean, it can be overwhelming too, because here we are talking about, okay, fiber, okay, water, okay, deficit, okay, and it's like, but, I try to at least remind people that, guys, this is it takes layers and you build upon. So don't overwhelm yourself. Think about one thing at a time, right? And that's how we be successful. Just one thing at a time. If we understand that, we don't do everything at once, and we build on all of the things, then it can be something that's doable. Let's see. Stress, exactly. Jen says, bring cortisol levels up. Exactly. It affects our body. Absolutely. So Jen is asking, has any of us done any sort of cortisol blood test? Have you done that?
I didn't even know they had one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Our adrenal glands are part of that metric. And you can definitely ask for things like that. I have done that. Because there was a time in my life where I just felt overly stressed, and then I wanted to make sure that my cortisol levels were in a decent range, and they were. So it's an option to do that, guys. I think cortisol is not talked about enough, but when our cortisol levels are high, it brings on a whole bunch of other inflammation and other things that can be work against us when us trying to get healthy. Caitlin, thank you for the gifts, guys. Nick has done one. I believe so. Kathy says, good to know. Absolutely, guys. So, an interesting thing. I know you don't do all the physical things as much as you had done, but when it comes to losing the 30 and getting yourself better with inflammation and your A1C levels, how does that feel? Can you feel a difference in your work and how, you go about it and how you feel in your job?
Just getting in and out of the car getting my gear on and off. You know, running down the stairs 10 times a day. You know, all those things feel better now. I mean, I don't even think I realized how bad it was. Like, I think I was getting to that critical place where I probably wouldn't be able to do that job anymore if I got much heavier.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't even realize it. And then when I came back after being out for so long, you know, I was nervous because I'd been 6 months of not working, but and my family was nervous. I took a lot of heat for going back.
They probably didn't want you to go back ever again.
You know, between my wife and my kids, they were all very content with me, you know, calling it quits. I'd done it a long time. I've been doing it since the mid '90s. But I just, you know, I'm stubborn. I want to leave on my own terms. But it's a huge difference. Just the gear itself. I mean, like I couldn't even barely get my gear on, and like I could have ordered bigger gear, but it's a pride thing. You don't want to go to headquarters and say I got fatter again. Give me bigger gear, you know.
Yeah. You know, it's part of that, you know, when I think about being in that field, you know, you work as a team, you want to be safe, you want to help. Was there ever a time that you felt like, I'm going to bring somebody down? I'm going to possibly have something happen because I couldn't function as best. I mean, did you ever get to that part? Because that's a lot to think about too, right? When you're trying to save lives.
Absolutely. I mean, I was that summer. I had really been taking a look at my abilities, and you know, my ability to throw my gear on and go into a fire. And you know, we had a pretty good fire in the middle of like the 100-degree heat, and it wiped me out, like, I mean, dangerously so. And I was like, I don't, you know, I was starting to think, you know, am I going to have to do something different? I mean, there's always options. You can go to staff positions and teach and things like that. But like, I like being on the street. So, you know, I'm trying to hang on to that as long as I can.
Yeah. So curious, sidestep here. Were you around during 9/11? Did you have anything to do with that or any stories about that? Just curious.
So, you know, living in Boston, the Boston area, at the time I worked for a little tiny suburb. And it really didn't affect, I mean, it certainly affected us, but it didn't affect us you know, in any kind of way. I was working as a paramedic as well. We all signed up to go down. And then when they figured out that there really wasn't that many victims that were alive, you know, the ambulance task force thing kind of went away. And I thought I was going to go on the ambulance task force, but we never did. Mm. And, but I was very involved with the Boston Marathon bombing, because that was, like, all of our guys are actually the ones that staff the first aid tent at the end, so they were all right there. I went, at the time I was a staff guy, so I went back in that day, and I was working you know, the days they closed the city down, chasing those guys around, you know. So I was working. So that was a big part of and a lot of what happened in Cambridge. Yeah. Oops, sorry, just where I worked. a lot of things happened where I worked. So it was that was a bigger effect on my career than 9/11. I mean, it was devastating.
That's true. I should have, used my brain. Duh.
It was just a different, like, we all thought like everybody was going to go. Like, we thought fire and ambulance, we all thought we were going to go. And it was so disastrous that they didn't need all that manpower.
Yeah. Yeah. Kathy's from Boston. She's expressing that in the chat. Yeah. So, you know, when it comes to being a man, and you had said this before, I heard you say you were stubborn, you this, that. What advice could you give a man in this chat who's listening to do what needs to be done for your health? Like, you know, because it's hard. Men can be stubborn. Men kind of wait to the last minute, right? They think, and they feel pride. I get it. Like, I'm going to do this on my own. This is what I should be doing. I'm going to try to figure this out. Like, what would you tell someone that maybe has that kind of thought pattern?
I mean, first and foremost, to start having an honest dialogue with your doctor. You know what I mean? Sometimes you go into your doctor's office with an agenda of, I just got to get out of here. I got to go in and I got to get out for my yearly, and like really have a dialogue about things like your weight, things like your blood pressure, things like, you know, your liver enzymes, your cholesterol, all those things that I was ignoring. I mean, I wasn't ignoring them. I was playing, you know, I don't see anything, I don't hear anything type thing. And you know, like, and I'm very he, him, you know, and so like, I am stubborn as all get out. But I think that didn't do me any good. I think I think it would have been a lot smarter to chase this stuff years ago and get ahead of it. And I did try. I mean, I did South Beach, I did Noom, I did all these different. I didn't do any surgeries, but I did every fad diet, fasting. I did, the cookie diet, like there were,
Ooh,
but like I did all those things, and you'd lose 10 pounds, but then you'd gain back 15. So that was so utterly frustrating. But I think if I had known my sugar was affecting it too, I think that would have been an encouragement that, hey, this isn't just me being weak.
yeah. Sometimes we need this like horrible thing to happen, which, we don't want it to get to that point, but sometimes we need that little shock, right? Because ultimately, we're just want to live and be healthy and not have some sort of traumatic thing happen to us, right? But like when we're younger, or if we're prideful, or if we're stubborn, it could go for women too. Like we just aren't thinking that way yet. It's kind of all superficial, but in reality, guys, we got to remember, like we got to remember the real deal about our health and our.
And age happens fast.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like weeks ago I was pushing guys out of the way to go into fires, and now I'm the old guy in the firehouse. It's just it happens fast. And like at this point now, I'm like, well, yeah, so many guys on my job, they'll retire and then pass away right after they retire, and I don't want to be that guy. What I mean? I want to enjoy my granddaughter. I want to enjoy I enjoy all my kids. They live close by. We do a lot of social stuff together. Like I want that to go on for a while.
Yeah. So tell me how it is with your family. How do they support you? Are they excited for you? Have they seen all the things that you've done and changed? And how's that dynamic?
They are. I mean, because of who I am, I think that they're not as vocal as some kids would be about, if I'm not doing something right or wrong. But they are, they're encouraging with knowing that I'm getting in shape, I'm losing weight, all those kinds of things. Because we've always been a physical family. We surf together, and we do fun things. And I don't know if they noticed, but I noticed that it was becoming significantly harder for me to do those things. And I don't think it's just age. I think it was the weight and some of the medical stuff. But they are excited. They're all nervous. It's through my career. There's been times that they've gotten nervous when I've got hurt or things like that. And I used to always tell my mom, don't worry, I hold the door open for the other guys. Don't worry. And I tell my kids the same thing. Like, I just hold the door for the other guys. Don't worry about it. And it's kind of that thing. It's kind of hard on them because it's not hard on me because I go and I love the job. It's hard on them because they worry.
Yeah. We'll get to Jen's question in a second. If you want, you don't have to talk about this further, but you said it's because of who I am, they're like this or that, right? And I think family dynamics can be interesting. Like, what do you mean because of who I am, they don't or they do? What did that mean?
Um, I can, I can be kind of stern. Just because.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm almost 60 years old. That's the kind of family I came from. My job, I'm in charge of a whole bunch of people. I call it leadership. My wife calls it bossy. So, I mean, I am real hands-on, but I also think that I can be a little bit intimidating even for the kids.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? They love you, obviously, but it is true. Like we kind of respond in a way that we feel comfortable with, each other, right? And I don't know. I can see that sometimes maybe it's troubling to you. You wish it wasn't maybe like that, but maybe you just, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But I think it's good that you know that your family cares about you, and I know that they're happy for you.
They are. My wife's a fantastic cook, like unbelievably good cook, and she's been very willing to make all kinds of changes for me, to help, less fried chicken, less a little less spice, which I love spicy stuff, but it really kind of bothers me. I think the GLP-1 and the spices don't get along super well, so I've had a little bit of acid reflux from it. So, we've made some changes there, but I am a big one on moderation, and maybe that's why my weight loss has been slow. But I think when I feel like I'm starting to deprive myself, I'll get frustrated. So, like, if I want to have a couple fries that somebody has on their plate, I'll have a couple fries. But I don't, I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't have my truck salt in my car anymore for French fries. I don't have the I don't have those kind of bad things.
Absolutely, I get that. So yeah, her question is like, obviously she's done really well to help you eat better, but and in general, do you feel like they've changed for the positive too, maybe? Like how are they doing with eating and supporting you on that?
Absolutely. Well, because I mean, right as we speak, my two oldest are working out like crazy trying to lose weight, and I think as a family we're all trying to get healthy, and I think it literally I think it had a lot to do with my medical issues. They all just said, you know what, let's all get healthier.
It's so true. It can be a shock, right? A wake up call for everyone.
Because like everybody, like our big social thing is let's go eat something. Let's go to a restaurant instead of when they were little, it was like let's go for a hike, let's go fishing, let's go. As we've gotten older, it's become let's eat, and so we're trying to break away from that a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, the best thing to do, go for a hike, and then you're hungry, and then you go eat.
Right, right. And they're all into that kind of stuff. Like they love it. Like they one thing we always did was go outside a lot. Even my year and a half old granddaughter, like 8:15 in the morning, she's throwing my shoes at me. Like, let's go out. We all like to go out and be outside and move.
I love that. Yeah, Kathy is here to support you. She loves you. Family support is huge, Jen. Absolutely. Because if you don't have it, it can make it difficult. Definitely make it more difficult.
Yeah, I think it would be tough. It'd be tough if it was different than that. I mean, I'm lucky. I mean, I say that a lot about a lot of stuff, but you know what I mean. But I'm lucky that I've had the kind of support from them that I do.
I love that. So, okay, so here you are. And how many months has it been since you've been on this treatment?
So I think 7,
7 months. And
30 pounds.
I want to say to you, it's not slow, by the way.
Well, it was fast at the beginning.
Sure.
It slowed way down. I mean, I'm still losing about once a month. I'll notice a weight loss. I mean, it's slow going, but there's still weight loss. It seems like, it hasn't stopped.
Yeah. So you're winning, friend. You are doing so well. And I think it's a good reminder to remember all of our daily wins that we talk about, right? Those small daily wins that we talk about, and not to let that overwhelm you about, oh man, I've only lost 30 and it's slowed. But think about how much your life has changed now and all of the new things that you feel and all of that, right? It's so important to keep remembering to think that way, because again, we can be our own worst detriment to ourselves, right?
What goes on in my head is never helpful. It always seems like it's working against whatever's running around in my head.
Yeah. So Jen has a great question. What are your go-to foods that help you? Your protein, any sort of pro tip that you have, Matt?
I do like a vegetable omelet in the morning, where I used to do a bagel. I do a vegetable omelet. I haven't embraced the egg whites yet, but maybe at some point I will. But I do like
add those. Add them in. You don't even.
right.
There's,
I heard you say that you do that. That's probably worth a try.
Mhm.
But I do a lot of yogurt, Greek yogurt. I've added, Mike on the Mission is a big one with the blueberries for fiber. So I've added a lot of I love blueberries. So I, eat those a lot as a fiber. And I picked up a lot of things like the fiber wraps and things like that, or all those things. So typically my breakfast and lunch I can plan pretty well. Then whatever my wife's making, then I kind of go with that. I add more vegetable than I did before. And I think at the beginning she thought that she was kind of funny about me not eating as much, because I was that guy eating 3 helpings. And when you cook, you want to see people eat all your food, and it took a while to realize I just can't do it. I can't eat more than that.
Interesting. Yeah. So one last thought, I guess. If you were to give any sort of advice to anyone here, whether they're just starting or they've been on this journey for a while, from your perspective and your lived experience, what would be some takeaway that you'd want to share with the community here?
I really feel like the open dialogue with your physician is so important. They basically handed me the O and didn't really even tell me what to do with it. Besides, shoot it once a week. So like I've had to open up dialogue with them and really advocate for myself. And I think that everybody has to do that. Like you have to really have that open relationship with your physician. And if they're not willing to have that, maybe move on to a different one, because there's good firemen out there and bad firemen. There's good paramedics and there's good doctors and not and not good doctors. So, you got to find somebody who will work with you and has your kind of style and your interests. And I really hid from the doctor for a long time. So for me, it's important that I now look at my lab results, make the changes that and ask if I don't understand them, things like that. So that's been a big one for me to have that open relationship with the doctor.
Mm, absolutely. It's so important. And a lot of us feel like we can't, or we can't speak up, or we can't fire, or we can't go, search for ones that want to, help us. And it's just not the case. It's absolutely the opposite. Well, I appreciate that. Anything else you want to mention at all that I didn't cover, or anything that you want to say that I didn't
Fantastic.
ask?
You're always very encouraging. You make me laugh a couple times a day. I don't usually comment on those laughs because probably the things you say are inappropriate. So I don't want to jump in on that. But I'll be doing things around the house and I'll burst out laughing at something you'll say.
Oh God.
No, it's great. I've enjoyed it, and I've met a bunch of I listen to Rebecca all the time, and Mike on the mission, and Mush, he's a brilliant dude.
He's extremely intelligent.
And I like that community a lot. And I've never been on a live before. Obviously, I can't make it work. But I do appreciate everything you guys have been doing.
Well, we appreciate you, Matt. Like I always say, I wouldn't be where I'm at today without all of you guys in the chat and all of you guys giving love and support back to me, right? So I appreciate you guys as well. And maybe Matt, as you've done more lives, it'll let you do your screen, and then you can come up and say hi too, and chime in and stuff like that. Because I think it's important if we feel compelled to share and express our journey, and that's helping people, because there's 52 people in here, and I know I haven't seen them all, and they're listening, and so they get something from each and every one of us, right? Like help them to keep going and keep moving forward. So
thank you.
Yeah. So thank you for coming on.
No problem. I'll work on the picture. I'll ask my 27-year-old daughter how to do it, and
There you go. Thank you. Yeah. Awesome.
All right, thank
Well, there's a little X button. I think if you push it, you're able to go down. If not, I'll do it for you. But thank you, Matt. It does take a lot of courage, Jen, to come up on a live and share. Absolutely. Absolutely. So guys, thank you for hanging out with me today for a couple hours. I appreciate you all. If anybody has any last minute questions in the chat, feel free to put them in before I head out. As Matt, let me see if I can just help Matt here. Oh, there we go.